If you're over 60, there's one thing you do every single night that could quietly raise your risk of a stroke without any pain, without any warning while you sleep. No chest pain, no slurred speech, no dizziness to alert you. You go to bed feeling just fine, and by morning something has changed. You wake up confused, unable to speak clearly, or you can't lift your arm. A stroke, silent, sudden, and life-altering. All because of something as simple as the way you sleep. As a medical professional, I've seen this far too many times, and not because of smoking or poor diet or lack of exercise, but because of common sleeping habits that most seniors believe are safe. They're not. Today, I'm going to walk you through 9 dangerous sleeping positions and nighttime routines that may be increasing your risk of stroke, brain bleeds, or blood pressure spikes, especially in the quiet hours when your brain is most vulnerable. If you or someone you love is over 60, this video could save a life, maybe even yours. So, don't look away. Let's begin. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. 1. Sleeping flat on your back with no pillow, supine head level. It seems harmless, even comforting. Lying flat on your back at night, arms at your sides, no pillow under your head. For many older adults, it's a habit that started decades ago. Some say it helps with back pain. Others feel it opens up the chest. But here's what almost no one tells you. Sleeping flat on your back without elevating your head can silently increase your risk of stroke overnight. And you might never feel it coming. When you sleep completely flat, your head is on the same level as your heart. That might sound natural, but physiologically it's not, especially not in older adults. You see, as we age, the vessels in our neck and brain lose their flexibility. Blood doesn't flow as efficiently. The veins that are meant to drain blood from your brain must now fight against gravity. That means instead of draining smoothly, blood can pool, slow down, and even clot, especially in the early morning hours when blood pressure naturally rises. And when blood clots form during sleep, they don't stay quiet for long. One small clot in a narrowed vessel, and the consequences can be devastating. Slurred speech, facial drooping, permanent disability, even death. I want to tell you about a 77-year-old retired mechanic. Strong, independent, still fixed lawnmowers in his garage. Every night he laid down flat in bed, no pillow, just the mattress and his hands folded on his chest, a habit he picked up from his Navy days. He said it helped him sleep deeply. One morning his wife found him half awake but unable to speak. His eyes were open, but one side of his face had fallen. He couldn't lift his right arm. In the ER, a scan showed a clot in his brain, a type of ischemic stroke that happens when blood thickens and clots inside narrowed vessels, often during sleep. His carotid arteries were stiff. Blood had pooled too long, and it was all linked to his sleeping position. Doctors worked quickly to dissolve the clot, but he was never quite the same. His speech is slower now. He uses a walker, and every night, his wife carefully props him up on a wedge pillow, something they both wish they'd known about years earlier. What most people don't understand is that when you lie flat, especially with age-related vascular changes, venous drainage from the brain becomes compromised. That's medical language for this. Your brain's plumbing system slows down, and stagnant blood can become a breeding ground for clots. Add in natural overnight dehydration and low oxygen saturation, and you've got a perfect storm. This position is especially dangerous for seniors with hypertension, atrial fibrillation, sleep apnea, a history of carotid artery disease, or those on blood pressure medications that drop pressure too low at night. The safest adjustment? Slight head elevation, about 30 degrees. It helps gravity-assist blood flow, reduces intracranial pressure, and allows the brain to oxygenate more evenly. Even 1 or 2 supportive pillows can make a profound difference, and always choose a pillow that supports the natural curve of the neck, not one that tilts the chin forward. Some people think this is just about comfort. It's not. It's about blood flow to the most delicate organ in your body. It's about protecting your independence, your memory, your ability to speak, to walk, to be you. He told me once with tears in his eyes, "Doc, if someone had just told me that sleeping flat could do this, I would have changed it years ago." Let me be that someone for you today. But if you think that's concerning, wait until you learn what happens when you sleep face down, where your neck bends in just the wrong way, cutting off the very arteries that feed your brain. If you're still watching and finding these insights helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're with me. Now, let's move on to point number 2. 2. Sleeping face down, prone position. There's a quiet mistake many older adults make every night, one that feels comforting, familiar, and even harmless. Sleeping on your stomach. Maybe you started doing it to ease back pain. Maybe you like the pressure on your chest or the way it makes you feel cocooned and safe. But I'm here to tell you something you may have never heard from your primary doctor. Sleeping face down can be one of the most dangerous positions for your brain. In medical terms, it's called the prone position. In younger bodies, it might not cause much harm. But as we age, our circulation slows, our arteries harden, and our oxygen levels dip more easily, especially during the deep sleep stages. When you sleep face down, several dangerous things begin to happen. Your neck turns sharply to one side to allow you to breathe. This position compresses the vertebral arteries, which are responsible for carrying oxygen-rich blood from your spine to the back of your brain, a region that controls balance, coordination, and even your ability to stay conscious. But that's not all. This posture also places pressure on the carotid arteries, especially when your head sinks into a soft pillow or mattress. Blood flow is slowed. Veins that are supposed to carry blood away from the brain become kinked. Stagnant blood collects, thickens, and in vulnerable people it forms blood clots. These clots may sit quietly for hours, waiting until the early morning surge in blood pressure hits, dislodging them and sending them directly into the brain. The result? A stroke, often massive, sometimes fatal. I'll never forget an 82-year-old retired school teacher. She came to me after a terrifying experience. Her daughter had found her one morning lying awkwardly on her stomach, her speech garbled, and her left side unresponsive. She was rushed to the hospital where scans showed a large ischemic stroke affecting her cerebellum, the part of the brain responsible for coordination and balance. But the cause wasn't high cholesterol or atrial fibrillation. Her carotid arteries were narrowed with age, and the hours she spent sleeping face down with her neck twisted had reduced blood flow just enough to allow a clot to form. By morning, the damage had been done. She survived, but she no longer drives. She struggles to walk without a walker, and she tells me every time we meet, "I had no idea something as simple as how I slept could nearly take my life." Here's the science behind it. In the prone position, neck rotation can impinge vertebral artery flow by more than 40%. Especially if the pillow or mattress forces your head backward. Chest compression can reduce lung expansion, leading to low oxygen saturation, which places additional stress on your heart and brain. Obstructed airflow can increase carbon dioxide retention, which further alters brain blood flow, often leading to vascular instability. As we age, we don't tolerate oxygen drops the way we used to. Our body's natural response time is slower. A 30-year-old might wake up gasping and readjust, but at 70 or 80, the same drop in oxygen might pass unnoticed, silently setting the stage for nighttime stroke. And if you're someone who snores, has sleep apnea, or takes sedatives or sleep medications, sleeping face down is even more dangerous. Your body is less responsive, your airway is more likely to collapse, and the chance of a silent, oxygen-starved stroke goes up. If you or someone you love is in the habit of sleeping on the stomach, I urge you, try switching to your side with a firm pillow that keeps your head aligned. Or better yet, sleep slightly elevated on your left side to help protect both brain and heart circulation. These small changes are not about comfort. They are about survival. Because what feels cozy might be putting deadly pressure on the very arteries that keep your brain alive. And remember, it's not just about how you sleep. It's also where pressure builds while you sleep. Because next, we're going to talk about a sleeping habit millions of seniors fall into, especially those with hip or shoulder pain, that quietly cuts off blood flow and leads to sudden strokes in the night. And it happens on your favorite side. 3. Sleeping with a heavy blanket over the head. There's a small, deeply personal habit that many seniors carry with them into old age. Something comforting, almost childlike, that we do without thinking. We pull the blanket up over our heads at night. Maybe it's to block out noise from a snoring partner or a humming fan. Maybe the room feels drafty or too bright. Or maybe, like many who grew up in colder homes, we find a kind of peace under that cocoon of warmth and silence. But for older adults, this small nighttime habit can quietly turn deadly. When you sleep with a heavy blanket over your head, you're not just blocking light or sound, you're limiting airflow. Over the course of the night, oxygen levels drop inside that tiny space. Carbon dioxide, the waste gas we exhale, builds up around your nose and mouth. And while your younger body may have tolerated it decades ago, at 60, 70, or 80, your brain doesn't recover the same way. Low oxygen and high carbon dioxide during sleep increase your risk of blood thickening, and in vulnerable brains, it forms blood clots. Let me tell you about an 81-year-old retired postmaster, a quiet, thoughtful man. He always liked the feeling of sleeping in the dark. He told me he'd been pulling the covers over his head since childhood. Messy. Especially in the winter, his wife had gently teased him for it, saying he looked like a bundled-up caterpillar every night. But it made him feel safe, relaxed. And so every evening he tucked in tightly, pulling a thick quilt over his head and curling into sleep. Then one morning, he didn't get out of bed. His wife, alarmed, found him groggy and unresponsive. He could barely open his eyes. When the ambulance arrived, his blood oxygen levels were dangerously low, and a scan at the hospital revealed he had suffered a silent stroke in the early morning hours. A clot had formed and lodged in a small vessel deep in his brain, not from atherosclerosis or atrial fibrillation, but from oxygen deprivation during sleep, paired with age-related blood thickening. And yes, one of the risk factors, sleeping with restricted airflow under a heavy blanket. You see, during deep sleep, especially REM cycles, your brain needs consistent oxygen flow. When you're under the covers, rebreathing stale air, your oxygen drops, your heart compensates by beating faster, and your blood pressure begins to fluctuate. These spikes and valleys put stress on already fragile vessels. Add in mild dehydration, slow circulation, and age-hardened arteries, and you've created a perfect setup for a clot to form. And here's the terrifying part. You might never know it's happening. You go to sleep feeling warm and safe, but your brain is suffocating slowly. And by the time the damage is done, you may wake up a different person, if you wake up at all. Medical studies have shown that even mild hypoxia, reduced oxygen levels during sleep, is linked to a significantly increased risk of stroke and cognitive decline in seniors. And this isn't only a risk for those with diagnosed sleep apnea. It can affect anyone whose breathing is disrupted by environment or posture. If you're someone who sleeps with a blanket over your head, even just during the winter months, it's time to rethink the routine. Instead of pulling the covers up, try wearing a sleep mask to block out light or use earplugs for sound. Keep your room at a comfortable, warm temperature and invest in breathable, lightweight bedding. This isn't about discomfort. It's about protection, about giving your brain the oxygen it needs to restore, repair, and survive the night. Because strokes don't just happen to other people. They happen to good people, thoughtful people, people like him who had no idea that a lifelong habit could nearly steal his ability to walk, talk, and remember. He now sleeps with a wedge pillow, soft lighting, and his blanket folded below his shoulders. He told me quietly, "I never knew something that felt so safe could be so dangerous." And he's not alone, because what we don't know can hurt us, especially while we sleep. But as dangerous as a heavy blanket over the head may be, it's nothing compared to the next habit, one that millions of older Americans rely on for comfort, yet it might be cutting off blood flow to the brain, starting with the way you rest your arm under your pillow. Let me show you how it happens. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now let's keep going with point number 4. 4. Sleeping upright in a recliner, frequent in seniors with back pain. For many older adults, sleep becomes more difficult with age, not just falling asleep, but staying asleep without pain or discomfort. Achy joints, stiff spines, acid reflux, and shortness of breath all lead to one common solution: the recliner chair. You may know someone who's abandoned their bed altogether, or maybe that someone is you. Night after night, recliner sleeping becomes routine. A soft blanket, the television humming faintly in the background, the chair angled just right. It feels secure, but what feels safe can sometimes be quietly dangerous. And as a medical professional, I've seen how this position, sleeping upright in a reclined chair, can slowly, silently increase the risk of stroke overnight. You see, the human body was designed to rest flat with blood and oxygen flowing evenly. But when you sleep in a semi-upright position, say 45 to 60 degrees, You're putting your circulatory system at a disadvantage, especially if you're older. In this position, gravity does two things. It pulls blood downward away from your brain, and it compresses the major veins in your legs and hips. The result? Sluggish blood flow pooling in the lower limbs and a much higher risk of clot formation. In younger bodies, this isn't as dangerous, but after age 60, the situation changes. The blood becomes thicker due to age-related dehydration. The vessels grow narrower from decades of wear. The heart pumps less efficiently, and that slow-moving blood pulled in your lower body can form clots. Small, sticky, silent threats that may travel upward during the night or early morning hours. All it takes is one of those clots lodging in a vessel in the brain. The damage is done before you even wake up. Let me tell you about a 79-year-old retired florist, a lovely woman with a sharp memory and the gentlest smile. She began sleeping in her recliner 5 years ago after a hip surgery made lying flat too uncomfortable. Just until the pain goes away, she told herself. But the pain lingered, and over time, the recliner became her bed. She'd wake up, stiff but managed, until one morning her daughter found her still in the chair, confused and barely able to move her left hand. She hadn't felt a thing, no warning. But a scan revealed she'd had a small stroke, a small deep stroke caused by a clot that had lodged in one of the tiny vessels inside her brain. She had no major heart condition, no atrial fibrillation. What she did have was poor circulation from years of sleeping upright. Her legs would swell, her ankles often felt tight, and every morning she'd feel dizzy getting out of that chair. Looking back, the signs were there, but she, like many, never imagined that a recliner could quietly become a stroke trap. Here's the medical truth. Sleeping upright reduces the effectiveness of the baroreflex, the body's natural system for regulating blood pressure. In flat sleep, your brain and heart communicate more easily to balance pressure. But when upright, especially if you're tilted forward or slightly twisted, that reflex weakens, leading to blood pressure instability. And in seniors, this becomes dangerous. Add in medications, dehydration, or compression from tight socks or swelling, and you're facing multiple risk factors at once, all while you think you're just catching a comfortable night's sleep. So, if you're someone who sleeps in a recliner or loves naps in that chair, consider this your wake-up call. Sleep is not just about rest. It's about positioning your body to protect your brain. If you must sleep elevated, use a hospital-style adjustable bed or a firm wedge that elevates your torso without compressing your lower limbs. And be sure to stretch and move your legs regularly to support circulation. She now sleeps in a bed again, with her head slightly raised and a body pillow supporting her hip. She tells me, often, I thought I was making things easier for myself. I never thought I was making them more dangerous. So many people assume the danger is in moving too much. But for seniors, the danger is often in staying still in the wrong position for too long. But if you think a recliner might cut off blood flow, wait until you see what happens when you sleep on your favorite side with your arm pinned under your pillow. It feels natural, comforting, but it may be the most damaging position of all. Let me explain why. 5. Sleeping on the right side with arm under pillow, most dangerous. There's a position that millions of people find comfort in, especially older adults. It feels natural. It feels secure. You lie on your right side, tuck a soft pillow under your head, maybe cradle another between your knees, and out of habit slide your arm underneath. You drift off thinking it's the same way you've slept for decades. But as a medical professional, I have to tell you this is the most dangerous sleeping position I see in seniors. Not because it causes pain, but because it quietly restricts blood flow to your brain night after night, and may be increasing your risk of stroke in the very hours when you believe you're resting safest. Let's break it down. When you lie on your right side, especially with your arm wedged under your head or pillow, you're putting direct pressure on major arteries and veins in your neck and shoulder, including the carotid artery and the subclavian artery. These are critical vessels, highways for blood traveling to and from your brain. But when they're compressed for hours, the flow slows, blood pools, veins get squeezed, arteries narrow, and in the quiet stillness of sleep, stagnant blood begins to thicken. It forms blood clots. That clot might stay in place for hours until you shift in the early morning. Your blood pressure rises with the sunrise, the clot dislodges, it travels upward, and in seconds, your brain is starved of oxygen. Let me tell you about a 75-year-old veteran, strong-willed, fiercely independent. He used to joke that he could still outrun his grandson. Every night, he slept on his right side, just like he had since the military. He'd curl his arm under his pillow for neck support. He told me one morning his wife found him halfway out of bed, dazed and unable to move his left leg. He was rushed to the ER where scans revealed a stroke caused by a clot in his middle cerebral artery. But he didn't have high cholesterol, he wasn't diabetic, he didn't smoke. So where did the clot come from? As we reviewed his habits, it became clear chronic pressure on the right side combined with years of sleeping on that arm had compromised his vascular flow. Ultrasound showed narrowing of the carotid artery, and because he'd been unknowingly reducing blood flow for hours every night, a clot formed silently in his sleep and struck just before dawn. He survived, but his mobility is reduced. He now walks with a brace and undergoes weekly therapy to rebuild his coordination. He once said to me quietly, "I had no idea the way I slept could betray me." Here's the truth. This position doesn't just affect arteries, it also compresses the brachial plexus, a bundle of nerves that runs through your shoulder and down your arm. When that bundle is squeezed under your body weight, the nerves don't just go numb, they send distress signals to your brain and can interrupt your sleep cycle without you realizing it. Over time, this poor circulation and nerve stress may contribute to microvascular damage, the kind that builds quietly, until it breaks. Older adults are especially vulnerable because with age, blood vessels stiffen and narrow. Blood becomes more viscous. Recovery from restricted flow takes longer. Nerve resilience decreases. So if you've been sleeping on your right side, especially with your arm underneath, it's time to make a change, not because of comfort, but because of life-altering consequences. Try switching to your left side with your head gently elevated and your arms resting forward or alongside the body, not underneath. Use a contoured pillow to keep your neck in alignment and reduce pressure on key vessels. One small change may protect your independence, your memory, your ability to hug your family, walk your dog, or speak your grandchild's name. You might not feel the damage being done, but your brain remembers. Your blood flow records it, and eventually the body reacts. Because what you don't know while you sleep can change everything when you wake up. But if you think sleeping on your arm is risky, just wait until we talk about what happens when your body tosses and turns all night long and how restlessness itself may be a red flag. Your brain is trying to warn you before disaster strikes. Let me show you what it means. 6. Frequent tossing and turning, poor sleep quality. There's a kind of restlessness that sneaks in as we age. The inability to stay asleep, the frequent waking, the constant shifting from one side to the other. You might chalk it up to normal aging, arthritis, or the need to use the bathroom. But what if I told you that this pattern of tossing and turning throughout the night may be a warning sign from your brain, and worse, a trigger for a stroke? As a neurologist, I've come to see sleep not just as a way to recharge, but as a critical time when the brain restores blood flow, balances pressure, and clears out toxins. When that process is interrupted again and again, especially in older adults, the consequences can be quietly devastating. Every time you move sharply in bed, rolling over, shifting your head, adjusting your neck, you're temporarily altering blood flow to and from the brain. In a healthy 30-year-old, that might not matter. But at 70 or 80, with stiffened arteries, narrowed veins, and fragile vessel walls, each of those movements can create brief periods of reduced circulation. Add in low nighttime hydration, low oxygen levels, or underlying blood pressure issues, and your risk skyrockets. But what's more alarming is what we're beginning to understand. Frequent movement during sleep may not just be a side effect of poor rest. It may be your brain gasping for balance. Let me tell you about a 76-year-old retired piano teacher. She was always sharp, elegant, and precise, the kind of woman who still ironed her pillowcases. But for months, she had been waking up exhausted, even though she thought she was sleeping for 7 hours. Her husband mentioned she seemed to fidget constantly in bed, turning side to side every 10 to 15 minutes. At first, they thought it was just aging. Then came the headaches, the early morning dizziness, and one night, she woke up with her right hand numb and her words slurred. In the ER, imaging revealed she'd suffered a small ischemic stroke, likely hours before she woke. And the cause? Her sleep study and vascular scan showed a combination of poor sleep quality and intermittent hypoperfusion, temporary reductions in brain blood flow that occurred during her restless movements. Over time, this unstable circulation led to blood pooling in her neck vessels, and eventually it formed blood clots. These clots weren't caused by high cholesterol or a heart condition. They were born from interrupted, unstable sleep, the kind that tricks you into thinking you're resting while your brain is under siege. Her story is far more common than we think, and for seniors especially, this kind of fragmented sleep poses several threats. It prevents your blood pressure from stabilizing, as normal deep sleep lowers BP in a controlled, healing way. It keeps your cortisol levels elevated, which can lead to overnight blood pressure spikes, a key trigger for morning strokes. It disrupts the glymphatic system, the brain's natural cleanup crew, leading to long-term vascular inflammation. And it creates constant fluctuations in cerebral perfusion, the pressure needed to keep blood flowing through the brain's delicate capillaries. These aren't just medical terms. They're early warning signs, and your body has been whispering them to you through the night. Waking up drenched in sweat, gasping, or feeling your heart race, that's your brain signaling distress. Tingling in your hands, imbalance, or a stiff neck in the morning. These aren't just age-related nuisances. They may be your body's way of begging for better sleep positioning, hydration, and circulation. So, what can you do? Start by treating your restlessness as a symptom, not a habit. Avoid late caffeine or alcohol. Keep your room cool and dark, but use layered bedding instead of heavy sheets. Use a body pillow to cradle your joints and prevent unconscious jerking. And most importantly, talk to your doctor about a sleep study if you or your partner notice you're waking often or moving excessively in bed. She now sleeps with a soft cervical pillow, keeps water near her bedside, and practices slow breathing exercises before bed. Her recovery has been slow, but she tells me, "I used to think waking up tired was normal. I didn't realize it was a warning I was ignoring every night." And she's right, because when sleep becomes a battlefield, the body remembers. But there's another silent threat that works hand in hand with poor sleep, and it's one that often gets overlooked because it starts before bedtime. It begins the moment you forget or intentionally skip something critical. A dose of medication, a small pill, a simple routine. That might be the only thing standing between you and a life-changing stroke. Let's talk about what happens when you skip your heart or blood pressure meds before bed. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now, let's keep going with point number 7. 7. Sleeping after skipping blood pressure or heart medication. For many older adults, the routine of taking daily medications becomes second nature, until the night comes when you forget. Or maybe you feel fine and tell yourself, just this once, it won't matter. Maybe the bottle's empty, or you're tired, or you're worried about side effects, and so you skip that little pill meant to control your blood pressure or regulate your heart rhythm. What you may not realize is that one missed dose, especially before sleep, can turn into a silent danger while you rest. And for seniors, this danger can come in the form of something irreversible, a stroke that arrives before morning without a single warning sign. Let me explain why. Your blood pressure follows a natural rhythm, rising in the morning and falling at night. This dipping is how the body resets. But if you have high blood pressure, atrial fibrillation, or any cardiovascular condition, your body doesn't regulate this rhythm well on its own. That's what medications are for, to maintain stability when your system can't. But when you skip your evening dose, especially if it's a beta blocker, calcium channel blocker, ACE inhibitor, or anticoagulant, something alarming happens. Your blood pressure may spike overnight, often between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., the very hours when most strokes occur. Your heart might race or become irregular. And if your vessels are already narrowed from age, cholesterol, or inflammation, that sudden surge in pressure can cause the blood to pool, stagnate, and form clots. Clots that don't stay quiet for long. Let me tell you about a 72-year-old retired electrician. He was diligent with his health, took walks, ate sensibly, never smoked. He had mild hypertension, and his doctor had him on a low-dose medication just once a day at night. One evening he was watching a ball game, got distracted, and forgot his pill. He told himself it was no big deal. He'd take it in the morning, but he never got that chance. The next day, he woke up feeling strange. His wife noticed his face looked different. He tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Within an hour, he was in the hospital suffering a moderate ischemic stroke. The doctors found a small clot in the left hemisphere of his brain, likely formed during the early morning hours when his blood pressure rose unchecked, a result of the missed medication. The worst part? He had no idea the risk was so immediate. He assumed one skipped dose couldn't do much harm. But in older adults where arteries are less elastic and blood becomes thicker with age, it can be the tipping point. Physiologically, here's what happens. Blood pressure medication works by easing the stress on your heart and vessels. When that medication is skipped, the protective shield is gone. Pressure builds, the lining of your arteries becomes irritated. Platelets, the tiny cells that help blood clot, become more active, and where there's pressure and turbulence, a clot is likely to form. In seniors, the margin for error is small. One skipped pill can mean the difference between a stable night and a morning that changes your life forever. He is recovering with therapy, but now takes his medication on a strict schedule. No exceptions. He carries a pill reminder in his pocket, and he told me during a follow-up visit, "One night cost me my words. I won't let it cost me anything else." If you take blood pressure or heart medications, even low-dose aspirin or blood thinners, take them consistently. Set a reminder, ask a loved one to check in, keep a backup pill organizer,